Stop. How much of your life is actually yours? If you feel anxious, trapped, or constantly indebted, you need to understand this. You are likely a pawn in someone else's strategy. Not through force, but through a secret, invisible game of the mind. Machiavelli was the master of these silent manipulations. Today, we're unmasking the 6 psychological games manipulators use right now to secretly control your life, your time, and your power. This is the playbook. You must know it to escape it. Welcome to the dark enlightenment of Machiavellian psychology. The goal of power is not necessarily to be loved, but to be needed, and these games ensure you are both needed and controlled. We are not teaching you to use these games, we are teaching you to see them. Because once you see the pattern, you break the chains. Let's begin the unmasking. Manipulators' first, most effective weapon is not a sword, it is a gift that comes with invisible, crippling interest. This is the debt of false kindness, and it operates on the profound human weakness for reciprocity. You must understand this cold equation. A true power player never acts without an intended return. If you see a manipulator offer what appears to be a selfless favor, a sudden act of generosity, a helping hand that seems too convenient, or a significant gesture of support, do not be fooled. That is not kindness, it is an investment. They are issuing a future IOU that you, the recipient, are now unknowingly obligated to pay. This debt is meticulously engineered. The manipulator chooses the time and the item carefully, always ensuring the initial favor is something that solves a major problem for you, something that binds you to them emotionally and practically. They make you feel a deep, gnawing sense of gratitude. This emotional bond is the strongest chain they can forge. Once you accept that favor, you have surrendered a piece of your autonomy, and they now possess a quiet, strategic lien on your future actions. The true genius of this manipulation is that the manipulator will never ask for the repayment immediately. That would expose the transaction for what it is. No, they are patient. They will let the debt lie dormant, allowing your gratitude to mature and deepen, giving you time to forget the exact value of the original favor. They wait for the exact moment you are weakest, the moment you are most vulnerable, or conversely, the moment your compliance is most critical to their own Machiavellian plans. This is the calculated moment they cash in that future IOU. They will not ask for money or goods, they will ask for your will. They will demand your silence when you should speak up, your support when you should step away, or your sudden loyalty when it directly conflicts with your own interest. The debt they call in is always far greater, an inflationary repayment of your autonomy. The initial gift might have been a small act of mentorship. The repayment demanded might be your reputation, your time, or your ethical boundary. Think about the internal psychology of this trap. You feel guilty. You think, I owe them. They helped me when no one else would. This sense of moral obligation is the pressure point they target. They use your own good nature, your own sense of fairness, to control you ruthlessly. This is why Machiavelli warned that a prince should always prefer to give benefits in small doses and impose punishment swiftly, because generosity, when deployed strategically, is the ultimate weapon of control. You must train your mind to distinguish between true, unconditional kindness and the strategic manipulation of the false kindness. True kindness seeks nothing. It is anonymous, or it is offered with clear boundaries. The false kindness, however, always leaves a trail of obligation, and it is always a contract written entirely in their favor. The moment you feel that uncomfortable, nagging sensation of "I owe them," you must pause. Analyze the transaction immediately. If the balance of power has subtly shifted, and you feel compelled to act against your own best judgment simply because of past debt, you are currently being played. Your escape begins with acknowledging that their generosity was merely the down payment on your own enslavement. This game is designed to strip you of your freedom without you ever seeing the handcuffs. The future IOU is cashed quietly, decisively, and at the highest possible price to you. If the first game is securing your obligation, the second is ensuring your perpetual blindness. We move now from the transactional to the purely psychological. This is the poison of selective truth, and it is the mechanism by which the manipulative mind controls your entire reality. A novice deceiver lies directly. A master, a Machiavellian practitioner of influence, understands that a lie is brittle. A lie can be discovered, and when it is, it costs the manipulator everything. But a partial truth, a truth that has been meticulously curated and filtered, that is a permanent fortress. The manipulator is not your opponent. They are your information filter. They do not deny facts. They strategically omit the data that empowers you. They leave out the crucial context, the alternative choices, or the key evidence that would allow you to make a truly sovereign, independent decision. They ensure your perception of the world, your entire strategic landscape, is incomplete. Why? Because an incomplete perspective leads inexorably to a position of dependence on the one who claims to hold the complete map. Think of the political strategist who leaks certain documents while carefully redacting others. Think of the colleague who enthusiastically tells you 80% of a story, omitting the 20% that reveals their own agenda. They are not lying, they are simply steering your intellect toward a convenient conclusion, a conclusion that serves their ambition and preserves your compliance. This is a profound form of control because it operates within your own mind. You believe you are making rational choices because you are reasoning with the facts given to you. You are trusting the information stream. But the manipulator has already poisoned the well. They have decided what information you need to feel safe, needed, or most importantly, scared. Fear, after all, is the most powerful anesthetic to independent thought. By withholding the full truth of a situation, for instance, by only presenting the risks and hiding the potential rewards, they guarantee your paralysis. They ensure you remain cautious, grateful for their guidance, and perfectly static, while they move unimpeded through the landscape they alone can fully see. This game is particularly devastating because it undermines your confidence. You start to doubt your own judgment, thinking, I must have missed something vital. I need their input. This reliance is the true victory for the manipulator. They have successfully inserted themselves as the indispensable lens through which you must view the world. To break this control, you must become your own ruthless editor. You must develop a profound skepticism not just toward outright lies, but toward convenient narratives. Whenever someone presents a story, a decision, or an analysis that steers you immediately toward a single conclusion, you must pause and ask the Machiavellian question: what information has been purposefully kept silent, and who benefits from my ignorance? You must proactively seek the missing piece of the puzzle, the unshared statistic, the untold conversation. The manipulator's power dissolves the moment their filtered reality is confronted with the full, unfiltered truth. Until you possess the complete data, you are simply operating on their chessboard, moving at their direction, unable to recognize the true path to your own sovereignty. We now enter a phase of manipulation that is not just about control, but about architectural destruction. If the manipulator cannot directly control you, their next logical step is to isolate you. This is the third game, the isolation chamber, and it works by the strategic surgical removal of your support system. Understand the nature of power as Machiavelli understood it. It is distributed. Your freedom, your stability, your critical judgment, all of these are reinforced by your network. The friends who challenge you, the mentors who guide you, the family who anchor you in reality. These people are your defenses. To the manipulator, they are simply threats. They are rival sources of information, validation, and resources. Therefore, the manipulator cannot tolerate their presence. The game begins not with direct attack, but with subtle, corrosive critique. They will begin to plant seeds of doubt about those closest to you. The manipulator might use backhanded compliments about your friend's immaturity, or they might express concern about a mentor's financial habits, always couched in the language of protection and care for you. This is the genius of the surgical removal. It's not a violent eviction, it's a gentle poisoning. The manipulator acts as the safe harbor, the only truly reliable and wise voice in your life, suggesting that everyone else is either too jealous, too foolish, or too self-interested to be trusted. They will exploit existing tensions, magnify minor flaws, and create a manufactured feeling of us against the world. The goal is to dismantle your independent sources of feedback one by one. Once they successfully discredit a mentor, you stop seeking that mentor's advice. Once they successfully instill doubt about a friend's loyalty, you subconsciously distance yourself. With each successful removal, your world shrinks, and the manipulator's voice, authority, and presence expand to fill the void. The most dangerous moment is when you find yourself consistently needing to justify your relationships to the manipulator, or when you begin to censor your conversations with friends because you fear the manipulator's judgment. At that point, the isolation chamber is nearly sealed. Why is this so effective? Because isolation leads to cognitive vulnerability. Without external voices to ground you, you lose the ability to check the manipulator's narrative against reality. They become your sole source of validation, definition, and information. The manipulator achieves the total control of a prince over his subject, but without needing an army, just your consent. Your defense is to recognize that power is decentralized. You must cultivate and fiercely protect relationships with people who do not agree with you, people who are successful on their own terms, and people who offer critique without demanding obedience. These people are your anti-fragility mechanism. The moment someone begins the systematic campaign to reduce the number of voices in your life, you are not being protected. You are being prepared for control. The manipulator's final victory is when they become the only reliable lens through which you view the world. And by then, your world is the size of their design. The moment you notice your world shrinking, you must aggressively expand your network. Your freedom depends on the diversity of your support. We now confront one of the most frustrating and ethically murky games, the use of manufactured helplessness. This is the fourth game, the victimhood pivot, and it is the mechanism by which the manipulator wields their own suffering as a supreme, unbreakable weapon. They transform their pain into a moral shield that silences all challenge and justifies all their demands. The truly formidable manipulator understands that in modern society, moral authority often rests with the perceived victim. When their power or their actions are legitimately questioned, when you finally have the clarity and the courage to call out their manipulation, they do not defend themselves with facts. They do not engage in logic. That would be admitting they are playing the game. Instead, they pivot instantly. They deploy the moral shield. They shift the entire focus of the conversation, from their conduct to their condition. They will suddenly become frail, overwhelmed, or deeply wounded by your simple question or assertion. They will dredge up past misfortunes, real or exaggerated, to flood the discussion with guilt, obligation, and pity. The effect on you is immediate and crippling. Your logical critique is suddenly recast as an act of cruelty. You are no longer a person seeking accountability. You are a callous aggressor attacking a poor, wounded soul. Your objective is forgotten, replaced entirely by a compulsive need to apologize, to console, and to retreat from your own position. This is manipulative cowardice disguised as sensitivity. It is a strategic deployment of emotional fragility, designed to render you paralyzed. They know you have a conscience. They know you fear being seen as unkind or unfeeling, and they exploit that fear ruthlessly. The moment they deploy the moral shield, the balance of power shifts completely. They have moved from the position of the accountable party to the position of the caretaker's burden. And once you take on the role of the caretaker, you lose your right to challenge, to demand, or to assert your own needs. You are forced into a state of perpetual deference. Ask yourself, in any difficult conversation with this person, does the dialogue always inevitably end with you comforting them? Does it always conclude with you apologizing for how you made them feel, even when they were the original aggressor? If so, you are being controlled by the pivot. The greatest danger here is that it trains you to self-censor after repeated encounters. You stop bringing up problems altogether, preemptively silencing yourself to avoid the exhausting and guilt-inducing fallout of their victim performance. The manipulator doesn't have to control your words. They have successfully controlled your courage. To break this game, you must be resolute. You must separate the person from the principle. You can offer compassion for their struggles, but you must simultaneously hold them accountable for their actions. You must learn to say with cold clarity, "I recognize your pain, and I am empathetic to your situation." That, however, does not nullify the need for accountability in this matter. Refuse to accept the caregiver role when you are seeking justice. If they continue to deploy the shield, you must recognize that their victimhood is not a state of being, it is a chosen tactic of control, and true freedom means refusing to validate a strategy designed purely to oppress your will. We now analyze a game that targets your ambition, your desire for approval, and your fundamental need for closure. This is the fifth game, the constant goalpost shift, and it is the mechanism by which the manipulator ensures your obedience through the promise of a reward that will never materialize. It traps you in an eternal pursuit, designed to perpetually consume your energy and your will. The most powerful form of control is not sustained by coercion, but by hope. The manipulator understands that a person chasing a reward is a person who will tolerate injustice, absorb abuse, and continue to expend immense effort, all for the promise of a final yes that never comes. Here is how the game is executed. The manipulator establishes a clear, achievable objective. If you just finish this project, you will get the promotion. If you just prove your loyalty one more time, I will finally be happy. You apply yourself. You sacrifice your time. You push past your boundaries, fueled by the imminent reward. But the moment you arrive at the expected finish line, the goalpost moves. Suddenly, the promotion requires one more special task. The promised happiness requires one more emotional concession. The manipulator is skilled in manufactured disappointment. They introduce a new, completely unforeseen criterion that invalidates all your prior success. They don't deny your achievement. They simply declare it insufficient for the true prize. This is a devastating psychological tactic because it exploits the sunk cost fallacy. You have invested so much time, energy, and emotional capital into the pursuit that the thought of quitting and walking away, admitting the years were wasted, is unbearable. Therefore, you stay. You rationalize the new criterion. You redouble your efforts, believing that this time the goalpost will stay still. But the goalpost is designed to move. The manipulator's power is derived from your state of near completion. They need you eternally striving, eternally seeking their validation, their final stamp of approval, because a satisfied mind is a free mind. The moment you achieve true satisfaction and independence, their control over your effort is gone. They will never give you a final yes. They need you pursuing, not resting. They need you to believe that the key to your happiness, your recognition, or your freedom is held exclusively in their hand, and that if you just stretch a little further, they will finally grant it. The psychological damage is profound. You begin to define your self-worth based on their elusive validation. You constantly feel inadequate, always seeking the flaw in your effort, never recognizing the flaw in their game. Your time, your resources, and your focus are eternally consumed, directed toward an object that exists only as a carrot dangled slightly out of reach. To break this cycle, you must draw your own line in the sand. You must define your own metrics for success, entirely independent of the manipulator's whims. The moment the criteria change after you've fulfilled the original agreement, you must recognize the signal. The goalpost has moved, and you are no longer playing for a prize. You are playing for their amusement. Your freedom begins the moment you refuse to chase a reward that is intentionally designed not to be caught, choosing to claim your own reward, your time and your energy, instead. Arrive now at the final and most common psychological game, the one that bypasses your intellect entirely and attacks your central nervous system. This is the ultimate tool for swift, unchallenged control, the power of manufactured urgency, or, as Machiavelli would recognize it, The time weapon. The power strategist knows that logic and critical thinking require time. A rational assessment of a proposal, a request, or a demand requires a cool mind, the ability to consult trusted advisors, and the leisure to weigh pros and cons. The manipulator's primary objective, therefore, is to remove your time. They need you to decide based on emotion, specifically panic, fear of missing out, or the crushing pressure of an impending deadline. Here is the pattern. The manipulator bursts into your sphere with a manufactured crisis. We need this decision now. If you don't agree to this budget today, the entire deal collapses. This opportunity is closing in the next 60 minutes. You must commit. They create a sudden, artificial deadline, a high-stakes emergency that demands an immediate emotional reaction. They do this because they understand the mechanics of the mind. The human brain, when rushed, defaults to simple, survival-based responses. It does not engage the sophisticated, analytical prefrontal cortex, the part that would calmly dissect their motives and reveal the flaws in their proposition. When you lose time, you lose control. You sacrifice your long-term strategy for short-term relief, and that relief always comes at a cost exacted by the manipulator. Think of the real-world scenarios. The predatory salesman who says the offer expires at midnight. The desperate colleague who claims a decision must be made by lunch, knowing you haven't had time to verify the data. The abusive partner who forces a high-stakes emotional confrontation late at night, when you are exhausted and your defenses are down. In every case, the time weapon is deployed to ensure that you are operating at their lowest possible intellectual capacity. The critical insight from the Machiavellian perspective is this: true crises are rare. Manufactured urgency is routine. When a genuine emergency arises, the strong leader remains calm and takes measured steps. The manipulator, however, thrives on chaos. They weaponize the illusion of emergency because it grants them a temporary dictatorship over your choices. They get the decision they want without ever having to justify it on its merits. Your defense against this game must be absolute and uncompromising. You must adopt the non-negotiable rule that no decision is final under duress. The moment you feel the crushing weight of manufactured urgency, you must create space. Even a 30-second pause can break the spell. The calm response of a strong mind is simply to say, "I recognize the importance of this matter. I will provide my decision at specific later time when I have properly evaluated the complexity." Watch the manipulator's reaction. If their motives are clean, they will respect the need for prudence. If their motives are controlling, they will escalate the panic, demanding, "Why can't you trust me? We don't have time." This escalation is your confirmation. The moment you gain control of the clock, you break their control over your mind. Refuse to be rushed. Demand time for strategy, because when you seize the time for deliberation, you reclaim your sovereignty and render the manipulator's time weapon inert. We have unmasked the 6 games. You now possess the blueprint, the debt of false kindness, the poison of selective truth, the isolation, the moral shield of victimhood, the eternal pursuit of the shifting goalpost, and the paralyzing time weapon. They are insidious, they are quiet, and they work because they rely on your natural goodness and your fear. But here is the ultimate Machiavellian truth you must carry from this moment forward. The most sophisticated manipulator cannot control an individual who is ruthlessly self-aware. Your defense is not to fight fire with fire. Your defense is clarity. When a gift is offered, look for the future cost. When a narrative is presented, seek the missing, inconvenient truth. When urgency is demanded, demand time. You are not required to be loved, you are required to be free. And freedom is earned by guarding your autonomy with the same cold, strategic vigilance that a prince guards his state. The games have been revealed. Your weakness has been identified. Now the choice is yours. Remain a willing pawn or become the ungovernable player who sees the entire board. If this information has armed you, then the time for passive learning is over. You need to join the community that values strategic power over emotional comfort. Subscribe now, and for your next lesson in strategic mastery, click here to watch my video on 6 psychological games manipulators use to secretly control you, or Machiavellian psychology. The path to control begins now.